So what I'm doing right now is building out this shape right here. You can see what kind of is going on real quick. That there's a ton of different tools to scope, right? All right, so start. Let's just make a cube or a insert a spear, right? So you should have this thing on the right side, right? So I'll go ahead and clean it out. What's locked? This thing? That? The divider? Okay. And this should pop open, right? Alright, cool. Okay, yeah. Where is it? Oh, yes, yeah. Don't worry about that yet. I'll talk about that soon. Control N. So Control N is like new canvas, right? Like in Photoshop or like any like drawing. So keep that in mind. That is also like right now what you're doing is like drawing, and it's like 2D projections that isn't 3D yet. Okay, and it isn't 3D until you go into edit mode, right? So if you were to click that spear 3D, so click that spear 3D to the right of your mouse. Yeah. Now drag in the middle, drag it out. So from the middle, you can just drag and then like bring it. No. In the canvas. So left click on the canvas. Yeah. Left click on the canvas and drag. Boop. There you go. All right. So what you're going to be doing is also if you hold shift and right mouse button, that will move the canvas like that cube, right? Oh, sorry. You got to go into edit mode. So if you press see edit mode on the top left right there. Yep. All right. So now you're able to move around the canvas and to adjust. So let's go through the moving process, right? So right mouse button off of the mesh, right? Moves it in a rotational. Holding shift on it does a locks it on like if you were to move it, it locks it closest to like the 90-degree angle. So if I'm like right here, hold shift and moving it right will lock it to the x-axis, and you can kind of see it like on here, right? The floor here on my side. And I turned it on. I usually have it off because it's kind of like a lot like annoying. But it's a so that right there. You probably won't see it because you're like it depending on like mine's like up here, right? Because of my mesh, right? Oh, that's right there. What do you mean? Oh my god. Thanks. Thanks, Zbrush. You're the best. Oh. You, what do you mean? Just control N real quick. Let's see if it's like in place. All right. So what happened here, right? That bigger cube, right? The bigger spear that you accidentally like I did on accident, told you the wrong instructions. You accidentally made two, right? So the second one that you made is the one that actually is the one that's moving. So it was inside of the spear, so you couldn't see it move around. So here you can actually see it now. Yeah. Oh, ZBrush, you gotta open up for me. It's still loading. Give it a second. There you go. There it is. Bloop. Open up some random view. Yeah, you can. Or I usually go to a different program to do all that texturing and stuff. So bloop here, edit mode, I lock it. So it's when I mean lock it, I shift and lock it to the closest rotation. And you can see now like, oh, it's not set to the correct way, you know? And if you really don't know how, like, what axis you're looking at, right? Oh, to scroll in, by the way, hold control and then right mouse button. Yeah, and it will zoom in and out. There you go. That will help you. There you go. So holding shift and then moving it right or left will lock it to like the closest 90 degree. So you'll get a nice smooth. You can see like, so it's not like this weird angle and you're like, what's going on? You know? All right. So to like, if you don't know like what axis the floor is, you know, you can always do this. Go to transform, and you're gonna see on there activate symmetry, right? You can do that by just pressing X in general on the keyboard, but this is also here, so you can kind of like understand where all it is at, right? You can do look on X, press X axis, you're good to go. Put your mouse over to mesh now, and you'll see that there'll be two dots, right? And if you don't see two dots, that means your ball is probably rotated in a weird way. There it is. There you go. Yeah, so you should see like what I have on my screen. So if you were to drawing by left mouse button, it'll be set to default. What's that say? 3D mesh. Okay. Okay, so right now it's not a 3D poly right now, and to do that, right now after you put your thing down, you already did that. The mesh, there will be a button on the toolbar here, and you can see, it says make poly mesh 3D. Click that, it will turn it into that. Now you can draw, and there you go. Wow, instant boot. Easy. Yeah. And if you look on my screen, there's a little bar up here, right? You see there's like two bars right here. Each one is every movie done. So if I were to like draw a bunch, right? You can see the bar on mine has increased. And this thing goes for a very long time, right? Very, 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 very long time. Yeah, like until you like literally delete the history of it, right? So it remembers everything you do. So you're like, oh, I really don't like the 80 things I did, right? Oop, back to where you were, right? Easy. But once you do that, right? But once you do that, it clears out that bar, right? So there's that. So to start, if you press space, this thing or hold it, these things come up, right? You can also see it right here already on the top of the bar here, which is Z add, Z sub, Z intensity. Where my mouse is here. I'll change my mouse also. I think that might be better. If I wonder if it will be if it'll do it. Nope, never mind. The program won't do it. Doesn't do it on here. It doesn't override over it. But my mouse right here on the top pretty much shows everything that you saw on that space bar when you hold it down. So Z add is pretty much adding clay right onto it, right? Z sub is the opposite, and you can do this. You don't have to click this every time, okay? So normally it's by add by default, unless the actual tool itself is a Z sub style. But if you hold Alt, which is the negative affinity of it, right? It's now it goes inwards instead, so it decreases. So if you want to like, oop, there's a heart, and then you can now you can, bloop, now you can like, I don't know. So, oh, press. You're not in. Press Q. Yeah, draw mode. Yep. The negative, pretty much. So taken away. Uh. Yeah. Hmm? What? Yeah, yeah. Forget Blender. Everything, all Blender things that you know of, forget it. It's like literally like every all the programs, right? None of them have like anything like similar to each other. Nothing at all. Yeah, because Maya itself is like, oh, we copyrighted these movements on the camera, so every other fucking program's like, all right, well, fuck you then, Maya. We'll make our own fucking camera things. And now everybody has like random ass fucking camera movements. So it's ridiculous. So on the left side here, you can see you're you're set to standard clay buildup, right? And then you have the style of how the dots, and then there's alphas and textures, and then the material that you'll be painting on if you were to do it that way. So we'll talk more about that later. But right now, if you press B while you're on your mouse is on the canvas, all this huge fucking list comes up, right? Crazy ass. There's like all these tools, right? The ones you probably want to keep use are BCB. So those that's the hotkey. So it's clay buildup. So if you press B and then you hit C and then B again, boop bloop, and then boop. It does this one. This is a square style buildup, right? It's very more like easier to bring up the clay. Of course, you can use the standard one that's already there. I personally just use this one because it has more texture. Whenever you're making like things, like it works the clay nicer. Another one is BFA. You might write these down too, because this one's a flatten. So if I were to increase the draw size, right, it flattens it, right? So imagine like yeah. So this is like, oh, I need like a nice hard surface, right? So now you're like, okay, and then, but the edges aren't very nice yet. So how to do that? Now you switch your tool to BPI, which is a pinch style, right? Yeah, and if you run your tool the tool over the the like sharp edges, it'll start making like a pinching of the clay, right? But keep in mind the typology of what happens to it. So I turned on the typology of what happened when you pinch it, right? It really like fucks up the topology, right? But don't worry about that because it's just clay. You can fix it, right? so so now it's all like this, right? And you're like, I want to keep it like this, but it's like literally like the topology is all fucked up. So this is usually what happens when you're doing things in ZBrush. You're like, okay, I have this, whatever. The topology are all very weird and whatnot. If you hit geometry, and then bring this down, there's two things. There's Dynamesh and Z Remesh. And Z Remesh is what re-projects the topology down onto the clay. It equalizes and averages out the whole thing, but it doesn't give you a nice smooth topology, right? It doesn't like follow the contour lines, unless you were to go in and actually like tell it, I want it to go that way, right? So on this forward, like you're like, okay, I want this to go like this, right? Pretty much. So I just made a line that would tell it to be like, I want whenever you Z remesh this, I want a line to go this way. So what would happen is Z remesh happens, it calculates it. Now if you were to look in the typology, now it actually follows what I asked it to do, but it doesn't follow here. You see, it's all fucked up because yeah, it doesn't do it for everything. It only does it for the things that you ask it to do. Yeah, just keep in mind it's like still a computer. It's like it's not smart at all. Uh, yeah. So you literally, if you were to do a face and do it in this program, you have to do every like line topology. Like, okay, around the mouth, the eyes, you make a circle, and like there's a lot. Like there will be a lot, but it's symmetry, so it's fine. It doesn't take that like long. And once you do it, you get it. It's like, oh, it looks great now. Fantastic. um. Oh, okay. Yeah. So here's tools, and then there's just gonna be a little tab that says geometry. So click the geometry tab. Boop. Yep. And then you'll see Z remesh. The Dynamesh, right? I'll tell you what that does. Pretty much is connecting two pieces of material together, right? So think of you would have another ball, right, and there's another one right here. So what would happen is like, and they're both like together, but here, example, insert a cube. There we go. Think. But I want to move the cube right here. Yeah, there you go. Boop. All right, and then I'm going to merge it up. And usually you don't want to merge until like later on, or if you know that it's fine, whatnot. Ooh, merge. Oh, it should be a merge down button. Boop, merge down. Boop. Now these things are together, but they're not technically together yet. And whatnot. Right? So what's gonna happen is that if you were to do this and then like Dynamesh it then, and then now you have this like it actually like glues it together. You know what I mean? So that's now and then like if you try to build it actually goes on top of whatever you're doing. But what usually how I go about making things in ZBrush is that I were to like build out the shape of it first of what I'm trying to build. So if you do BMV, which is the move tool, so you can move a giant particular thing. Yeah, so just block it out. So like, oh, I want to make the shoulder pad right real quick, right? So we'll just do this real quick, and then like, oh, I don't need this access out on the other side, right? So we'll just get this, right? Oh, okay, yeah, it's getting close to the shape I want it to be. Bloop, done. But I don't have all this other crap I don't want. If you hold Control and Shift, it changes the tool on the left side. If you notice, from the standard brush to a clipping brush, right? And if you were to click on that, you can see it changes from like different styles of clip, right? What we're going to be using is just Control and Shift. If you hold both at the same time, right? Yours is you'll probably see yours is a little different. Select. You change that to clip curve, real quick. Yeah, it's this weird like sundial looking thing, and then I changed it to a stroke style. Yeah. Actually, I'm gonna change the lasso for this purpose, but it's you can see what it does here. So if you look on my screen real quick, I'll show you what happens. So if I were to make a line like this, right? Anything like bloop, everything outside of that line gets cut, like gets mashed down. Like it doesn't get deleted; it gets mashed down into that. So you'd be like, oh, I need this, like shoulder pad to be like this shape and like that. So everything's get mashed down, and you see that what happens to it is like if you look from the side from this angle, right? It literally did get mashed down, and it's kind of like protruding, right? And what you could do is just like re-Z mesh it, right? Taking a bit. There's certain angles too. Like when you do this, it goes through the whole mesh too, right? And you're probably like you would have multiple different layers instead of this being on one layer. So this piece, right? This shoulder piece, right? How I would go about and actually making this, right? Would actually be like this section right here. This big piece is one thing. This is another part this is another part, this is another part, like yeah, and then eventually at the end you put it together, but it's literally like 60 different pieces, you know. Yeah, and then if you hold shift and left mouse button on the mesh, that's the automatic smooth. It goes, yeah, unless you change it to something else you want it to be. It's like your secondary brush. Yeah, and you hold shift and just left click, boom. You can change the intensity of the brush, by the way, of your smooth. So if you're like, oh man, I just made this like nice little detail thing, but I went a little bit too much and I kind of want to smooth it out a little bit, just change the intensity down of it. And the focus shift is pretty much like the range of like how much, like pretty much the gradient, if you think about that. So if you wanted to paint with like a very hard like edge, like a very sharp edge, right? You just turn that up. Or if you want a smooth gradient, like airbrush style, you just turn it down. And then the draw size is pretty much the standard like brush size. That can be as hotkey to the open bracket and small bracket. That's near your enter keys, just right. Yeah, the brackets. Yeah. So that in general is universally always going to be the hotkey to increase your brush size. Not in Blender though. Blender is like hold B, drag. It's like I was like what the I'm like what the fuck, or scroll up for like the it's so crazy. Like Blender uses a lot of weird hotkeys compared to everything else, but uh so there is like you'll notice that okay, so there is like or if I wanted to do this in like two pieces, right, we'll just take that I could mask out this section right here, right? So how to do that? Let me move this down, get this out of the way. Change it to the mask pin, and then you want to grab the lasso. It just takes some time getting used to the program, right? Because like when you're sculpting it out, right, you're like literally doing this in 3D, and like at first you're like, what the heck's happening? All right, so I'm masking out this section here, and you'll see that this is like really not like a nice sharp line, right? And like I'll go ahead and retopologize that, and then bump up the topology so that we're not sitting at 10 anymore. We're bumping it up. So you divide it up, 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 and like literally it gets up to the point where it's like it takes a bit, right? Oops, wrong one. Now it's like a lot sharper, right? And what would happen is like, okay, if you hold control and click outside, it switches the mask to be the invert of whatever you selected. This is really handy, especially if you're like doing things such as like this. Let's go to the draw real quick. You're like, I need this to go down, you know, or something like that, right? This section's going down, right? You go back and then you go to the move tool, right? And you literally could just like bring this in, and now you have that, right? Or the fact that you can just do whatever you want on this surface that is not masked, right? And if you're like, I think this mask is too sharp, if you were to hold control and click on here, it smooths out the mask. So that now that edge now is more smooth and not like this really super strong, like hard line. So, but so like you can do that to change like how you want to go about this. Like I usually use the lasso tool, right? Do that, and then like for this shape here, right? Let's turn this way. Like it looks. Oh, there's another one. So it's like, let's move it down this way, or it's like something like this, right? Boom, right? It's this weird like double section here, and another thing that pops out, and then you end up having just to shape up that bottom one so it's like more smooth. Turn the focus on. There we go. So now you have like start getting the shape of this second one, right? Bloop. And then you can clip off this excess, whatever, mash it down, move it. Don't worry too much about like it like being all like gross looking. You literally can yeah. And when I mentioned about retopologizing, right? This is not going to be your final like mesh, right? You are going to have to go into Maya and put the squares back onto it, and that makes it optimized pretty much. So it's not like 12K polys. So it's like, oh wow, yeah, that's really VR chat ready. Bloop. So bloop. Okay, so just generalizing it. So right now I have my symmetry. My symmetry is set to Y because of the way I'm creating this. Right, it's not on the x-axis, but I'm having it like from side. You can do it from the front like this too. It's the same. And just in general, usually when you do some here, you always want to turn it, right? So you do the front, then you do the side, and then you do the 3/4, because then you get the angle. Everything's like a little bit more angled in the way that you'll want it. Yeah. Yeah, so ZBrush is literally like you don't even hold it. Like you can actually left click. Actually, yeah, you can right click and you can right click and left click, right? As long as it's off the canvas. Yeah. Oh, you would just zoom into it like that, right? And now you're working. So if you hold Control and left, right, or up, down, it'll bring it in closer, right? And this is all based on like the mesh, the pivot of the mesh, right? So if you were to have like another section of this, right, that's like down here, it's gonna be looking at the whole thing. And what happens is that you're like, oh, I only want to look at X amount, right? So you're like, all right, I only want to look at this much. So now that whenever you're actually looking or working, you're working only on this, right? And then you can zoom in. And to do that, it's Control Shift and change the tool from a clip into the selection tool. And the selection tool is the same as the others, right? You can select. You can be like, oh, I don't like that select. I want the inverse of that selection. So it hides things, right? So you can look at it like that. But keep in mind that if you're working on like something like right here, right, you do like this, and it's like, oh, that looks great. But then you like actually show the other part. Yeah, that thing did not get touched by whatever you did to the top portion. So it was hidden. Did you put it? Mm-hmm. Like everything. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Uh huh. It's a lot. It's a lot to learn. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So in general, what will happen is that you're like, oh, okay, I'm making something now. It's like you're like, okay, I got the general shape of this now. Of course, this will look a lot better when you like put a lot more time into it and like actually look like the idea and concept and whatnot. It'll be actually be scoped out. You'll be like, oh, okay, now it looks like the actual like thing. So it's like already starting to like you already have the shape of it, right? And now you just so now you just have to like now do the rest of it, which then you have so to get this right um into Blender, right? If you wanted just this, right, you could just export it out with this button right here. Exports. And it exports it as an OBJ, right? It does not a FBX, so it doesn't have any of the maps, right? That and whatnot. But you can grab those maps uh, after, like through like grabbing the texture, right? Whatever you do, you can grab them, so you don't have to worry. But in general, it does give you just a generic like uh, OBJ instead and whatnot. Yeah, so they give you an OBJ, but then they give you can grab the texture and whatnot, um, and whatnot. So like you can actually like see this in like a different material too. If you were to hit the material right and then switch it, right now nothing is painted onto it. There's no information of materials being painted. So if I were to change this to be a material, and like change this here, so I wanted to only paint material on here, right? And I want to paint the material of this gummy, right? There we go. And I were to switch this over. What I painted right there was the material only, and that little M stands for material. Or if you really wanted the material plus the RGB, so now we have just the generic, like do white cap, right? It paints, it will paint that, and you don't have to paint it like such hard surface, right? Yeah, so you can actually, go back to your standard, brush, is it that SDS? No, that's Damien standard. Oh my goodness, there's so many brushes in here. That it's ridiculous, right? Like, and this is just the base, right? People like you can grab more brushes on online and whatnot. And whatnot. I think that's like what you really want to know, right? Unless you want to like start adding in like kit bashing, but that's like later on. What that means is like, yeah, so you get like primitives, right? There's a capsule or whatever, like whatever you want to add onto here. Like boom, now it goes here. Oh, okay, I want more, onto here. Oh, okay, now you want that or something. Oh, I don't really want these primitives. I want like some clothing or something. Like I want like these buttons on my shirt, automatic buttons, and whatnot, right? And whatnot. And there's other things too. Like there's a freaking gun, man. Like a generic like shape of a gun, right? Very generic thing, nothing grand. And now you have all this, right? But of course, they're all like this weird like this. And what you can do, like when you do this, you could separate it every time because it masks out everything else, and whatnot. But and then you just say, oh, I want to split, by mask, right? By mask points or unmasked points, boop. Now this thing that I have masked, like this gun, whatnot, right, is its own entity or layer, right? And you're like, oh, I don't like that. Get it out here. Yeah. And now we have this weird looking turtle shell thing. Here you go, green turtle. I made you a new shell. Oh my goodness. So yeah, so it's like crap ton of information I probably gave to you, and whatnot. But mm-hmm. And like the best way to learn is to like make something simple at first, and then uh, it will be a lot easier because like you already have that knowledge in your head, and then like doing it again second times, like you don't even really have to think about it. You're like, oh yeah, I want this to happen, and you're like, oh yeah, just do that, and then and it starts getting you start getting more creative. You're like, how do I even like make this super sharp edge? Oh yeah, I just turn it to the side here, right? And just like I just want to like cut it off, right? Mash it down, whatever, whoop, done. All right, now I have this nice sharp edge right here that I don't have to paint in. Right, it makes it so much faster. You start getting creative about these things. Well, now you're like, oh, okay, yeah, done. Now I have this nice sharp edge throughout the whole end. And then you just go through like the pinch brush and like, okay, now just fix it up, tidy it up now. Whoa, fancy, done deal. Thanks. Yeah. Depends on what you want to make. Yeah, like the best way to do it is replicating. And you'd be like, okay, like the thing that I'm making right now is like, okay, like I know like the things that I need to do. I need hard edges, right? So how do I do that? You can do like these many different like options to do it. Like you do the method I do it, you can do it by literally just flattening out that little section, right? Which takes like, probably a lot forever, right? Uh, and they're like, oh, okay, just flatten out, flatten out, flatten out. And then eventually, you pinch it together or just get a nice sharp edge and whatnot. Or like, there's a lot of different like ways to go about it and whatnot. But learning like, you just need to look at it and see how you want to go about it. There isn't really a one way to go. It's like you can do it this way, you can do it that way. It's really kind of like just kind of come up with the idea of like what's fastest. So like what can like get you the result faster and easier, right? So you don't have to like struggle in making it and be like, oh fuck, I really don't want to spend the next hour like smoothing this like little corner here to make it look super smooth, right? You're like, fuck it, I'm just gonna cut it off, done. It's nice and smooth now. Forget it. Like that, like, because like I like literally watched some of my classmates do that, and I'm like, what are you doing, man? Just go in here, just turn it to the angle that you want it. Like, get it? Boop, plop, done. Wow, that's sharp. Got it. You got it. You did it, dude. Like, and now they're like, now they're like, what the fuck? I just wasted so much time. You know. So that or they're like working on one thing. You're just like, yeah, don't do that. Just forget it. Just make a second one and just move it down. Whatever. Worry about it later. That now okay, now you have like if you wanted to make like a snake like tail or something like that, like, oh okay, I want that. Just keep duplicating it down, right? Duplicating down. And then you just put it all together. Right? You're just like, oh okay, that one's there. And there's another one. There's another one. And then you just merge it all down together. So you start from the top, go to the merge, and just say, yeah, just merge down. Yep, do that. And you just put the tools all together, right? So now that it's all together, right? And now you have now you have your weird looking snail tail engine. And I know, yeah. But you get the idea though. Like you can make all these things, uh, and not have to worry about like oh how do I like have to worry about like making it all in one layer. You just make it all in like a bajillion different pieces, and then you put it together later and whatnot. Yeah. So you'll notice that. Yeah, it's funny. Like it's different than traditional, where traditional is like literally like you only have that one layer. And if you're used to that, then that's totally fine. You can do it in like one, like right. It's just like this is more like speeds up the process so that you don't end up wasting time and whatnot. And it's not frustrating too. Like you're like, well, I fucked up. Well, that's only like 20 seconds of my life. Whatever. Like, oh, whatever. Let's see. You're like, well, none of that worked out. Oh, we're going back to whatever that hell that thing was. You could bring it all the way back. So there's that. Oh, okay. Now we have our thing. I didn't want that weird looking tail thing now. Oh. mm, yeah, I know. There are other things such as alpha and texture. So we're gonna talk about alpha. Alpha is literally like, let's say I have like, let me move this out of the way. Um, like an engine alpha that, and you can find it online, right? Like if you were to just go online, you'd be like, let me go see if I can just grab a random alpha online for a like mech part or something like that. Sci-fi alpha Zbrush. And you can find this like on a bunch of things. There's like hard surface things, and examples of it would be looking at like this. This is what it does, pretty much. Literally pasting it, and it's like super high detail, right? Crazy high detail, and it's like so simple. Takes you like 2 seconds, man. It's just bada bing, bada bang. Like this thing, right? Just if you were to just download this, right? All right, boop, come in there. Okay, it's called Weave. Okay, make sure. Just make sure so I don't look through the files and be like, what the fuck am I looking for? Boop. Bam. Now I have Weave in here, right? I want to change this to clay build and also my drag, but I want this not, I want to be negative subtraction, right? Oh, my bad. I need to turn this geometry up higher. This has to be at a higher resolution too. So we're at that high, and you kind of see it already. Like, oh, isn't it? Yeah, you subdivide it. So now we're up very high. Oh, there's a weave. Now you have this really easy, like, let's say like you're making like cloth, right? Boom. Like, of course, don't mind the nasty green things. This would be right here, right? Um, or if you're wanting to paint it on there, you can. That's the thing. So I usually handle a lot of my there's two different ways to handle this, right? There are like bigger crevices to do or small crevices to do, right? There's so you would either end up making uh these big nicks in here, right? This would be what you probably end up wanting to do with the program itself, right? Is to make these like bigger negatives into the actual mesh, right? This isn't what, like, if it's like more than like an inch, right? You don't want to do that for like a normal map. Normal maps are literally like the tiny little things, and that's what the weave is for, right? You want to put that as the normal map. So it ends up having the detail, and it won't even be this like crazy intense, right? It's like it should be like super smooth. Like there we go, like that. Like the comparison between this, right? Just lightly, it's like in light information. Like information when the light hits it, it tells you this, right? You can see that with your eyes. This, if you were to like make this in and bake it onto your map, it wouldn't even like show like halfway at all because the light map only goes a certain height, right, into the geometry uh, for it to actually like the program itself, right? Uh, so there's that's what you probably want to use it for, or at least that's what I do for it. You can use alpha maps also to be like, oh, okay, I literally want like this to be extruding like crazy high. So you want you want it to go higher, or like I want this to be like this much more, right? Like literally like whew, crazy, right? Or you can be like, you can see like it actually popped up a lot more, right? You can do it that way too. So there's a lot of usage for it. Of course, like this isn't probably like the best case, like right here. Like, oh yeah, you just turn it off. I turned it off, so now you can put whatever I want. Boom, Japanese flower boat. Oh no, you're fine. What's up? Oh, press X. If you press X, it turns on mirror or symmetry, and if you go to transform, yeah, so transform, you can do radial symmetry too. So think of it like a clay pot or a spear, right? You want to like make an actual like thing that go like from all like a circular pattern and whatnot, and has multiple points. So you can see that, right? So now there's like anything along that edge, right? Yeah. Sorry, let me get closer. So you can see that I made a line here, right? So if you're like, oh, I want to like on like the clay pot or something or whatever you're doing right there, right? You're building it, like you're just like, oh, I just want like these two lines right here now. You can literally just start painting two lines right here, and each point, right, is pretty much uh, a instance of where you painted, and you can change that even from being X to Y. So now you have it on the top one instead, or Z, which switches the actual rotation and whatnot. You can do it multiple ways too, and whatnot. So now there's like a ginormous amount, right, of information and whatnot. So you make these really crazy patterns and whatnot, like in a matter of seconds and whatnot. So this thing's starting to get really crazy, right? There you go. So there will be so when you're pulling this from like one side to then like if you're happy or whatever this is, right? And you're like, this is great. I want it to look like this. I don't even care about the retopology, right? You literally could go in and like decimate the living shit out of this thing, right? And what happens, yeah, what would happen first to do this, right? If you want to keep the, like, when you decimate, you lose this information, right? This, this right here. You make a duplicate after it's like already high up, right? Geometry. Let me bring this higher up. Oops, I didn't mean to do that one more time. That's way too many polys. Yeah. This will you be careful of going higher than 8 million, 6 million on your computer. My computer can handle up to I think 32 million, whatnot, because I have all the extra like memory, right? Whatnot and whatnot. So it's like ton of extra memory. So what happens is that you'll probably just end up being like, I'm working on this, right? You have another tool. There's like other options right here. So you'd be like, oh, I don't want to look at this, right? You like turn it off. So if I were to insert like the cube again, right? Oh, I don't want to see that, right? This hides the information. So there's actually the actual amount that of everything in your scene here, and then the actual things that you see on your screen are what it is right there, which is good. You end up having that. Um, mhm. It's not like a limit, but mm-mm. You like the only time you end up having more than 8 million is because you're like, I need to see what this looks like and whatnot. And because of that, keep in mind you can have this set in the geometry to not be sitting at the subdivision of 5, right? You can have it sit to like 2, and then like, all right, have it. Yeah, now I'm working on this, right? And you turn it on to see it, but it's like the low division now, right? It's not sitting at like a bajillion uh like subdivisions on your screen. It's literally sitting at like the lowest. Like you bring it all the way down, now you're sitting here, like now it's the lowest of that, and you know like in the general area of what that is, right? um when you're like messing with this geometry and whatnot, you're like, oh, okay, I want, you know, the paint this and stuff, but you know, ends up being, whatever. It's easier to see. And then you're like, oh, I'm painting around this now. There we go. But this isn't like sitting at like, no, it doesn't. Well, it does on the forefront that like you see how where I painted, right? It blocks. It blocks where your mouse casts, right? So that's, yeah, you can't paint on this pretty much because it's a separate tool. Yeah. So if I were to paint here, you can see that this doesn't even paint that, but you can still paint and like get this to be like sitting the way you want it to, or you can still bring it underneath up, right? So it starts like the whole. Let's just like a gem or something, and you're like, oh, I need some branches that sit around this random mask or something like that, right? Or you're making like this is a face, right? And there's like a mask, and then you have like sections of like the under armor, right? That go around it, like for the jaw right here, right? And then this is like some other section like near the eyebrows, yeah. And then you just do it this way, right? So you can do, for example, bring in that avatar and then make a spear, right? And then you start doing this around it. Don't worry about it underneath, right? Because you're gonna be your method of how to do this, right? Is you're gonna literally cut this off. Cut this off. You duplicate this, you'll cut this section off, you'll cut the other section off, right? And then you'll have this for one part, right? And you'll also bring it into Maya so that it ends up being that your topology isn't going to be this anymore because you're remaking the topology and whatnot. Even though it's just there, it's really just a shape. Mm-hmm. So it's just, for now, it's just like shape, whatever, and whatnot. You just need it there. So for the points, and I'll show you in Maya real quick what I'm talking about. Do. Yeah. All right, there we go. Gotta bring Maya over. Okay, so don't worry, you only need one thing, all right? And then you can do everything. You can bring it back into Blender. So, oh god, I need to learn how to move stuff. How do I move things? Oh, okay, there we go. That's how I move the camera. It's so weird. I'm like, I don't. It's like I'm always like, what the hell is happening in my life here? All right. All right, so let me delete that. So when you open Maya, you probably don't have like all this on your screen, right? You'll probably have like this a lot smaller. This is the channel box for whatever you create. So similar to whenever you press N on Blender, you have the information here. Holding right click on the object, right, brings up this little bar. What you're gonna want to see more is this radio tool up here, right? Vertex, edge, object mode, vertex faces, and faces. So to say, so vertex. Oh, is it zoom in? Is that zoom in? There it is. So it's alt. It's either the combination of alt, right click, left click, but this in Maya it's hold alt and then you can right click in and out, and not control in like ZBrush, right? They literally just changed the thing over. Right? It's so if you want to grab like the vertexes, right? You can grab that, and then you can move it. Why not? Yeah, and it's not right click, by the way. Like Blender, it's right click, right? to grab select is left click here. So left click, left click, left click. But in general, that's the basic stuff, right? What's gonna happen is that you're gonna want to bring in your model, and you can bring in a model or a section of your piece of armor or anything up to like 4K or 4 million. Sorry. So if it's something like super heavy, don't you're not if it's bigger than that, you want to bring it down. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and import object real quick. Okay, so I brought in this object here, which is my model. Why not? Zoom in. There we go. And you can see all the points here. Yeah, all the points and whatnot. This is OBJ, so it doesn't have any of the bones, it has nothing, right? What will happen is you're gonna make it into a live. What live does is that it's like anything that you create, like vertexes, will stick to the surface of this, and it will use it as a depth collider. So if you click here, right, it goes into that section of where the mesh hits right here. And so you would click on that, right click, or left click onto the mesh, and then you can go to modify, make live, and now it's set to make live, that mesh, right? And then it has this magnet. We're going to be using quad draw here, which lets you draw pretty much the quads here, like polygons. So for example, oops, I just made a polygon here. So like the arm wouldn't look like that, of course, it'd look more like better than that. Yeah. So literally you're just drawing, like, okay, I want this to be like this. And you probably don't want like the material to be green. It just happened to be green because my character had a material that was green in my, and then it actually just like took the information over. And you can change that by changing the material on the object itself. And this won't, I won't have to do this for like a body or anything. It's just whatever you're doing for like in Zbrush, right? So it'd be more like, oh, I made the horn or something like that, or it's this thing, right? But ideally, this is what happens is that you'll start making this, right? And then you're like, oh, okay, I'm satisfied with this, right? Cool. Done. Now we have that as an actual like object, right? Okay. Object mode. Whatnot. And sorry, it's probably hard to see, but it's there. It's right there. You can faintly see it. There you go. I moved it out. But now you have it right there, and it goes around the contour. Yeah. And you can then bring this, you can export that out by going to like export selection, name it whatever, and you can bring it back into ZBrush again, right? And shape it, whatnot. And what you can also do while you're in here is actually UV unwrap it too. Or you or or you can bring it into Blender and UV, whatever UV you want to do. Just keep in mind that if you were to if you bring this piece back into ZBrush, it keeps the UV like information right on the object. But if you were to change like retopology, like Z remesh it, right? It literally like deletes all the UVs that's already there, right? And also in ZBrush, you can do an automatic UV unwrap. It's not very good, but it is something, especially if you're just saying like, I don't care. I know this piece of armor is going to have this shader that does not include a texture or anything, right? It's static, pretty much. You can just literally UV unwrap it, Where is it? I wonder if I can find it somewhere in here. There's so much. It's probably like right here. I'm worried that it is. Uh, Zbrush. Is it UV master? There it is. So, you would ever move that out of the way. You can unwrap this thing here, right? And it's already, it's like unwrapping now. So if you were to scroll down on your tool here, and then you go to UV map, you can tell it to, this is literally what happened to it, right? This is what the UV looks like. Like, it's this really, like, really fucked up looking thing, but that's what it is, right? It's literally what it is. Yeah. There it is. Like that, it's that's super simple. Like you can do that, and it has UVs now, right? Especially if you just like, yeah, I just want this to have the shader, and it doesn't matter. And then you can export that as OBJ, and it still has that UV, and you don't want to UV it in um, Blender or the fact that you decimated it. Like so, you would post process the current thing. Okay, it did its thing. It didn't take long at all, and then you would decimate current. Boom. It still keeps the shape right of all the shape of the geometry, but you literally just destroyed every quad, and it brings it down like by a crap ton, right? But that's good. That's like the end stuff, right? Um, that's like it doesn't matter. But keep in mind, like if you were to do that and you want to rig this right here, right, and to move it, it's gonna look like really shitty. Yeah, because like it just has like no like extra like limbs to move with, right? Or like the flow of it looks all jagged because there's like triangles all over the place and whatnot. If you decimate it, you lose UVs. You have to yeah. So you'll have to re UV it again. So if I were to go into UV master and unwrap it again, it does taking time. Then now it looks like this. Now every time it's different. There isn't like a one for one of like how it always comes in. It comes in like some doodle bob thing. It looks so dumb. It's crazy because when a UV unwraps, it doesn't have anything. But you can there's certain things you can do to preserve certain things. So you can use like you can be like, okay, I want to like protect like this much, right? And what you would do is like you paint the RGB. Oops. Oh no, give me RGB right here. You would paint it and whatnot, right? And then you go back in and then be like, okay, I protected whatever it was that I did, right? And then you would wrap it, and then when you do it again, so that part that I just painted is all preserved and protected. So none of it, like none of the seam lines, that's what matters, goes there. And you can do that to make it like on your face, right? If you were to paint like the main part of your face, because you don't want to line through any of that, you only want on like the sides. This is how you would do it, and you could like cheat it. But of course, you probably won't do that in this program. You should probably do it in a different program, Blender or Maya and whatnot. Yeah. Huh? The size of the UV and stuff. Um, whenever you pull the size of the map out, or you grab the map, right? I'm pretty sure I don't know where it is. Where do you grab the map? You can probably create it. Whatnot. Texture map. Yeah. So if you were to like paint on here, you can create. I believe you can paint. Yeah, from poly paint. So this is what poly paint is. That's what it's called when you paint it. So you can grab it, right? Or you can grab from the UV map. Oh, okay. So this is all the. So this is the UV map, right? So that's the UV right there and whatnot. And it's not, of course, that's not like that's where it's just like placed there. You just start creating maps, right? And you can grab this map here, pretty much, and grab it out. I don't remember where you do that. I haven't done that in a very long time because I don't do my textures in this program at all. I do all my textures in another program that's also expensive. Whatnot? It's called Substance Painter. Oh no, I actually paid for that one. That one's actually that one's actually paid. It's crazy, super crazy. It's like mm-hmm, to do all this, right? Right. So when you look back in like VR chat, right? And you're like, why is there like this super crazy stuff? It's like no one like has that money to use this stuff, right? And then if you're using it for VR chat, there's like there's a you're really probably not going to use it for VR chat. Like on the scale level of like what they're wanting to use the program for in the first place, you're using for other purposes than VR chat, which is like learning and whatnot at that forefront. And then they're like, oh okay, and then they get join a game company or something. Yeah, it's definitely really good to learn. It's super good. And it's not saying that using it for VR chat's also pointless. It's just like usually normally the case that they're. I don't think the people that use this are VR chat players. They're more yeah. Uh, mhm. So this is like people want like I mean, whenever like when I was mentioning like yeah I want to do I rather do a commission that's like custom whatnot that's like whatnot using ZBrush and all this other stuff like it's literally gonna be like $500 like because it's not just like oh I do this on Blender like I'm doing this in like bajillion different programs. Yeah, like making it from scratch, you might see some people that do it in Blender and whatnot, and all that stuff. But what they're making, right? It's not bad and whatnot. It's just like your level of detail could be on like doing this process, right? Is a lot higher quality potentially, right? I'm not saying that doing Blender. It's however you go about it. Um, like this has the potential to go make like a triple A game quality of like assets and stuff, right? So you start seeing like, oh, okay, that's how people made like the Devil May Cry like assets and stuff and like all the textures. So yeah, ZBrush, and then they added all the textures onto it to make it all look fancy and some emission that happens here, and then you rig it and whatnot. Rigging's not too bad. It's actually because you're re-topologizing, right? You're reducing the amount of polygons that are actually being moved, right? And then also you just go with the edge flow, pretty much. When you can look on Pinterest on like how to do like re-topo edge flow. I rig in Blender because of Blender itself already has like the cats program. I rig based off their program. Um, you can do it in Maya too. It doesn't matter. It's pretty much the same. But I don't. I always do it in Blender because Maya loses blend shapes and shit, and it's very stupid and whatnot. Yeah. So this is retopologizing, right? And then the edge flow, right? You would if you were to do a body, right? This is literally what it looks like. Actually, I take that back. That looks very shitty. Um, something more along the lines this, like the boobs have like a circular pattern, right? The stomach has like a circle, kind of like oval pattern that goes down, and you always normally see this already on your models, like when every time you look at it. Yeah, especially when like you bend the knees, right? You don't have this like weird like cut, right? And if there is, you'll be like, oh man, this is like really bad, like really shitty. And this is what would usually look like if you were to make like a AAA game, right? It's like simple. This doesn't use a lot of polygons, whatnot. Yeah, yeah. So like, and then if you go back to like these other things like the gun and whatnot, and etc. Like, some of these, this is like way over polygon. This is way over polygon, right? If you think about it, like, you can reduce this by a lot more. And also like these small little crevices and stuff, right? You see that? That's just normal map. Like I told you, like the light information making this fake depth. So like if you look on like the crevices like right here, like on the gun right here, there isn't like a polygon like on some of it. Some of it is like actually made out of polygons. Some of it's actually made out of like just with the normal map itself, right? You can see some of it like happening here. It's like not everything is made out of like the edge flow of like an actual like in Blender and stuff, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot. You need to know the anatomy too of like the human body. No, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Look, it's you can learn it real easy. Eh, You don't need to worry about anatomy that too much, right? Um, because if you a lot of parts and section of anatomy can be broken down into like the function and what are the like the basic like three shapes of the muscles that make it. Like your leg or your upper leg has like three muscles that really define like the shape of your leg. Every other muscle that you see is like so minute and minuscule and subtle, like that it's just like irrelevant to like even bother to include that into the polygons and stuff, right? But yeah, yeah, you literally just if you were one, yeah, yeah. There's also shortcuts too. You're like, fuck it, I don't really want to make the base of the head from scratch, right? You literally could just go like what base head 3D model anime, right? Boom, now you got an basic anime head 3D model. Grab that, so you don't have to make all these small shapes and that. It gives you a really basic head already, and you can just adjust it in ZBrush. Like literally, like you can use that as a base and then just build off that. So then it ends up looking like that, right? And then you'll just add the haircuts and whatnot. And it's like what you saw from this, right? It's not too different from this, right? Just like it's just modified and whatnot. Uh, I wouldn't recommend doing hair in ZBrush for what you're wanting to do. Like for like anime hair, it kind of ends up looking like this, which is kind of like really gross. In Blend, like we use hair cards, which are you know. Oh, whoops! I didn't even type. Anyway, hair cards. Maybe ends up like looking, more smooth and stylized the way that we're doing it. And AAA game companies also handle it this way too. This is like example of like looks like The Sims or something like that. But it's similar to that. It's just the way that the texture is painted, right? Is how handled. Yeah, I would. When I mentioned the other day about the Vroid, right? This program literally just paint on the hair cards on your like you make the hair right. Once it's done, export the hair out and shape it onto your character's head. You're done. Like it has the bones, it has the everything. You just have to just draw on the texture, a new texture on it, and now it's done. Doing this in ZBrush is fucking shitty as hell. Like you don't ever want to do it. It's like there's like it's just a horrible, horrible experience. Like the only like benefit of doing it in ZBrush is you can see it on the model like there, but like you can still do this on your model. It still has the information of like all the bones and stuff, right? And whatnot. If you were to just bring in the blender and you just move it around, it's done deal. It's the same thing, pretty much. Yeah. This in general is so you have ZBrush, and for your avatars, if you want to make hair now, do you have this program which is free? Um, you don't care about the other stuff within that program, right? This is the only thing that really matters is the hair cards because everything else can be made in everything else like Blender or ZBrush, or you just grab a part and whatnot from somewhere else and whatnot, and then and now you have like a really quick scratch build, right? And now I keep in mind the amount of how much effort that you put into this, and then how much it actually costs for the person and whatnot. Like everything you just did literally equals up to the experience of someone that would want to ask for $100 plus avatar, because you literally just scratch built the face, right? Even though you just took a base, you modified it to now be that. But you also have to do blend shapes, though. That's the bad thing. But you know, blender blend shapes. You're done. Done deal. I don't really do it. I don't like doing it, to be honest. I can. I always like to just rather just grab somewhere else because I don't care enough, to be honest. And whatnot. The only blend shapes I really do most of the time is to like add props, or like if there is like this weirdness within already in the face and like that's there already, then you can change it. Yeah. Oh, okay. Um, Blender. Uh, bloop, over here. All right. So let me grab some random model. Gumi. Yeah. Rex. Yeah. Here we go. Okay. And then bloop. Oh god, no. Texture, why you gotta be like that? Anyways, we'll leave it solid for now. Move this over, and I'll move this out of the way. So in general, your model already has the blend shapes already all together. But if you wanted to do the face and stuff, right, you just do separate the part, right? So this has the basis, right? Here, and you want to make a new blend shape, right? And whatnot. And then what I clicked on to do this is click on the object. You go into this triangle thing that's upside down, which is pretty much the vertex information in addition to the shape keys. Add a new shape key. Go into here. You move this out. What happens is that it now remembers that you or whatever you do here, and when you exit out of it, it keeps it a value of 1 to 100. You can change that value here. So it's like I don't really like this being at 100. I like this being at 80 here, right? And then you can be like, okay, I'm gonna make another blend shape, right? That involves this vertex here, right? You know, and I wanted to like move it down, like down here or something like that, right? Now you have that, and then now it moves down. Also, bloop. So that's pretty much what blend shape, like generic, like generalized. Especially when you're moving like multiple, you can end up just doing oh, let me delete these two. Make a new one. So you go here, you can press O to do the soft selection, right? I think it's scroll down. Is it or scroll up? There it is, scroll up. So it's a soft selection, right? So you can do this for like a lot of parts. So now it's like, oh, I want this jacket to pop out more and whatnot. Yeah, you press O and you have to do mouse scroll up or down, and it changes um the thing. I believe it's also like some other thing on the numpad that I don't have. I remember looking at it, I was like, what the fuck is this shit? and and the thing to keep in mind is you don't see it until you actually start moving the thing, right? So and it only changes based when you hold to move it, and that's another thing that like really pissed me off. I was like, why can't I change it like now so I know what it looks like before I move it instead of having to move it and then move go right, which is annoying. But oh no, it's because it's like you see the radius, right? It's where the vertex is selected, and how much of that is affected by the start location. So yeah, if the circle is bigger, it will move everything. Everything's weight painted correctly based on this model. I think so. Actually, I actually cannot say so because like this, I haven't actually tested this model. And people fucking suck ass at weight painting and whatnot. And I weight paint like everything, and that's actually what takes so long when my model is that I'm weight painting. And it starts like, what's taking you so long to do this basic model? It's like, oh man, you don't even know. It's got to look good. It's got to look good. Like the bend's got to look good, or it's just like it pisses me off to no other. Yeah, so now you have the blend shape, right? And now you're like, oh yeah, now it moves out and stuff. And then what happens? Like you say this, like, oh, example being like face, like O. So like that'd be like the O face, like if it was that, right? And then whenever you put it back together, right, you join it all, and if there are multiple things with the face O, blend shape, it will merge those two together. So you have to keep that in mind that if you were to make a new blend shape, right, now face O is here, and if you were to have the sleeve like this, the leg pop out too for face O, it gets merged together and whatnot. Oh god, I don't know how to move in here again. Yeah, like every time I'd be like, okay, I know how to move now. And it's something. You'll get used to it. You'll be like, you're every time you move to a different program, you'll be like, it takes you like 2 seconds to figure out, right? The move keys. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So there's that. That's cool, right? Is there anything else you want to know? Uh, yeah, that's a lot. It's a lot of information. So, mm-hmm, mm-hmm, yeah. Yeah. Now you're gonna make some amazing shit. You're gonna be like the best avatar creator in the world. I'll be like, yeah, you did it. You killed it. Woo! Killing it, man. hmm Yeah. Uh. Yeah. hmm What you can do is like get a generic can, uh, and then start like doing like that, like the creases in the hand, and whatnot, so that you get an understanding. You can you can get like a generic hand, like base, where it's all smooth. Yeah, a hand that's all smooth, and then you can start adding like the puff between like each like finger and digit, right? And then you can actually start moving it. Oh yeah, I let me show you how before so you can see how to move things too. Like the mask, right? You can move things. Do I have? Oh, I got a ZBrush over here. Too many things. Too many things. Insert. There you go. Get rid of the star. Oh, I want to get rid of the star. Pen spear. Oh, yeah. Question mark. You know what? It's okay. There we go. It's good. He's gone. Okay. So if you're like, I want to move like this finger, so to say, and let me bring this higher up to be like more of a random like hot dog finger. Okay. And then like, let me ZBrush. Okay. Turn up apology and also make this easier to see and not hurtful on the eyes. What you can do, like, if you remember when I was talking about like masking stuff, right? You can literally soften it by like holding control and clicking on the object itself. It softens the edge right here, and then you can actually go to rotate, right? And you can like actually rotate, you know, the digit, right? Okay, so now you actually have like the tip of your finger, right? Yeah. So now you can start rotating, and then you actually go back in and actually start doing the whole. Oops, I'm making a bunch of fingers. There we go. Oops. Okay, but you actually can go back in now and move that out and whatnot, and do all that fun stuff to like actually make the finger look like it's like right there. Whoop. Mm-hmm. Yep. So that's something, right? uh, and then, but of course, like you don't really need to do that. But it's also good to learn because you're actually not sculpting the thing in such a manner way of like now it has like that movement and not like it's static. It's a static thing. Yeah. Hmm. It's also a lot easier, especially if someone explains it to you. If you were to like see like a YouTube video and they do this, they might go a roundabout way of not saying it in such a wording that's like, oh, straightforward. They're like, oh yeah, blah 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 blah, and like going on about some other stuff. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, straight to the point, right? Hmm. Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, the worst thing is like the tutorial just says do this, do this, this, and then it doesn't tell you like why what's happening. Like to it, it's just like crazy. Yeah, there is a tutorial and whatnot, but what everything I explained to you is pretty much everything you'll ever use in this program. If you need more out of it, it's gonna get more like that's advanced stuff.